The personality?
That makes sense.
What's the end of this?
I don't know.
Oh my god.
What? Are you guys okay?
Oh,
no, we're not.
Well, what's up?
Oh.
We're having trouble with theories of personality and what psychodynamic perspective is.
You don't remember.
Well, I can help you. I took this last semester. I mean, this was just all a breeze for me.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, so where do you guys want to start?
Psychodynamic perspective.
Okay, well, to apply all of this stuff to, to actually learn it, you guys need to apply this to your life. So let's go to the part, shall we? Personality can be separated into two different parts, your characteristics and your temperament. Your characteristic traits are traits that embody your moral and value judgments. In your temperament is more of a biological factor which plays into your traits, such as your irritability and your adaptiveness. The four main theories that we still have today are the psychodynamic perspective, the behaviorist perspective, the humanistic perspective, and the trait perspective. To further understand why Sigmund Freud had developed his psychodynamic theory, we need to look at the time in which he lived in. Now, Sigmund Freud lived in the Victorian era, where pretty much the only function of sex was to produce children and not as an outlet for pleasure. So pretty much we have men wandering around with mistresses, and we have women, their wives, laying down in bed sexually unfulfilled. And because women were mostly his patients in his office, he concluded that unfulfilled sexual desires of the children and how they are unresolved continue on into adulthood, which translates into deviant behaviors in adulthood. In Freud's theory of personality development, which involves the psychosexual stages, he has 5 different stages in which concentrates on the fixation and the completion of each stage. In the first stage, which is the oral stage, the second stage, the anal stage, the third stage, the phallic stage, the fourth stage, the latency stage, and the fifth stage, the genital stage.
The first stage is called the oral stage. This happens from birth to 1.5 years and is dominated by the id. The oral involves chewing, sucking, and making noises with the mouth. When someone becomes fixated, they later have problems with nail biting, smoking, alcohol, and they have a tendency to use oral forms of aggression such as sarcasm.
The second stage is called the anal stage. This happens between 1.5 to 3 years old. Kids become fascinated with their anuses and love having control of when they poop. They can decide when they will or will not do it. However, when a child does not move past the anal stage and into the phallic stage, the child would either become overly neat, stubborn, and punctual, or overly messy, easygoing, and tardy.
The phallic stage, which occurs from age 3 to 6, happens when a child is sexual awareness occurs, in which where the Oedipus complex, in which where the son falls in love with the mother and wants to have sex with him, and finds a rivalry with his father, and there's also identification in which they identify with their father and find that they have things in common and no longer feels repressed sexual tendency towards women, which also happens with females and vice versa. When a child becomes fixated in that stage and isn't able to move past that, they become either a mama's boy or a daddy's girl.
The latency stage is when the child or 6-year-old to puberty finally figures out that they have friends that are the same sex, like males with males or girls with girls. And they usually stick with those groups because they think the males would think the girls have cooties, or the girls would think the guys would have cooties.
In Freud's theory, he introduced 3 parts of personality, which includes the consciousness, the preconsciousness, and the unconsciousness, which also includes the ego, the superego, and the id. The ego, which is mostly consciousness, is the part where we deal with reality and thinking both logically and rationally. The superego, which is equal parts consciousness, preconsciousness, and unconsciousness, acts as the moral compass. And lastly, the id is all unconsciousness, which harbors all innate desires and does not care about the consequences of its actions. So basically, it does whatever it wants.
Freud had followers, and they were called Neo-Freudians. However, one of his followers, Adler, disagreed with Freud's theory about sex being the main part of personality development. Adler believed that children developed an inferiority complex towards adults, causing them to feel unimportant. They see adults as having the power and controlling the world around them. Feeling helpless, children grow up with the need to feel superior, leading Adler to coin the term compensation.
So here's an example of compensation.
Get me right.
So you see George, he is short. He's below the average height of a regular male. So he decided to go out and buy this truck to compensate for his height.
Adler also believed that the birth order was important in a child's personality development. He believed
That the firstborn child would feel inferior to the younger sibling because the younger sibling would get all of the attention and he would become an overachiever. The middle child would become competitive because he has dominance over the older child and the younger sibling. And the youngest sibling would feel inferior and isolated compared to the two older siblings because he didn't have the same freedoms. Another Neo-Freudian that steered away from Freud's theories was Carl Jung. He believed that a person not only had a personal unconscious, but a collective unconscious, meaning everyone shared the same fears and memories. For example, you can see similarities between religion, like when they practice their beliefs, or how their stories are told. Religions from one side of the world have the same archetypes and stories as the other side of the world, and they have no idea who the other is, helping to reinforce Jung's concept of a collective unconscious. Now, an archetype is a role that a person plays, like the hero or the teacher, and they all have certain qualities that make them that archetype.
Carl Rogers' self-concept theory. And his theory is about fully functional and self-actualized people or person. And what he talks about is basically how someone can become a fully functional person is by thinking about their real self and ideal self, which is that they know who they are and they know what they want to be or become. And for that to happen, they need to have unconditional, positive regards. And they need to have love, affection, they need to have respect for each other without any strings attached. So this is like how you're going to be a better person in life, or how you're going to be a worse person, or you're going to go somewhere and not do something that you want to do, or do something you don't want to do because someone's telling you to do this thing. Like if someone's child, the parents tell their child to become whatever they want, that person will become more self-actualized or fully functional. And this is the reason why Carl Rogers believed in this, that he wanted people to do this thing and become more fully functional, because it will help them out later on in their lives and they'll become a better person.
Because 16 different traits are too much of a big number to evaluate someone's personality, researchers have lessened it to about 5, which has now been called the 5-factor or the Big 5 personality trait model. The first trait that we can talk about is the openness on the high scale, refers to someone's creative or artistic or imaginative and non-conforming traits. On the lower scale, the people who are referred to as closed-minded are more conventional, they're down to earth, and they're uncreative.
On the conscientious side, on the higher score, they are organized, reliable, neat, and ambitious. But on the lower side, they are unreliable, lazy, careless, negligent, and spontaneous.
So extroversion is about talkative, optimistic, very social, and affectionate. And that's on the high side. But the low side is comfortable being alone, not social at all, reserved, and likes to stay in the background. Very quiet person.
Agreeableness is someone good-natured, trusting, helpful, and someone on the low side is rude, uncooperative, irritable, aggressive, and competitive.
And neuroticism, on the high side, they like to worry a lot, they're very insecure, they're anxious, and they're very temperamental. But on the lower side, they're very calm, secure, relaxed, and stable.
Projective test is a method psychoanalysts use to uncover the unconscious conflicts, desires, and urges that affect conscious behavior. Projection involves reflecting your thoughts onto a vague image. One of the well-known projective tests is the Rorschach, where someone looks at the image and they say what they see. For example, what do you see here?
I see a black helicopter. It has like scratches on it, so I think the helicopter has like some battle damage from like being inside a battle.
I see rainbows and unicorns and butterflies and Powerpuff Girls.
I see a girl getting broken up with by her boyfriend.
The thematic of perception test, or the TAT, is where someone is told to tell a story about the picture they are given. For example, Guillermo, what do you see in yours?
Well, inside mine, I see this old woman, this young, very young, handsome man, and the woman's looking at him with a, I would say, a pervy face because she wants to get in a sexual attention with the man.
I see a woman grabbing onto her man because he's leaving to the military.
I see a drunk, hungover man and then a woman who's crying over her lover because she can smell perfume on him.
So that's the theories of personality. Thank you.